Stop waiting for that level up and that growth and that expansion to come to you. Hey, welcome to this podcast, Little Girls Aren't Taught This. I am your host, Lydia McCartney. I am a reclaim and embodiment coach, the queen of deep trauma transformations, and my superpower is helping women heal the core traumas that fracture their self-love and block them from stepping into their power and the life that they desire. My motto is action plus embodiment equals freedom, and this is the podcast unlike no other. In this podcast, I am going to plant little seeds of self-love that allow you to begin to develop your sense of self-awareness and really understand what self-love means for you. So let's jump into this week's episode. Hello, you gorgeous, gorgeous humans. So, welcome to another episode of my podcast, Little Girls Aren't Taught This. And this week's episode is all around making space and stepping into a level of growth that occurs. And I want to make this episode short and sexy, but I want to fill it with little nuggets of wisdom. And it feels really relevant for me to do because last week, I don't know if you've noticed on Instagram and if even you picked up on it in the intro of this podcast episode, I am no longer calling myself a self-love coach. And although it feels a little bit scary because that was a level of comfort and that is what I'm known as, it just also felt really right. But in the process of stepping away from that, I've learned a lot, like in terms of how we navigate towards comfort and that fear of stepping away from something, even if we don't think it's become a part of who we are. We realise when we go to pull away from it that actually, wow, that label means something to me, and there's a little bit of comfort and security embedded in the things that, I guess, the people in our lives, or, you know, the labels we place on ourselves, or how we identify who we are. And part of growth is stepping into new levels all the time, every time they feel relevant and every time like they feel like they are coming. So for me, I've really, really felt called to step away from the title self-love coach for around a year now. So as you can tell, it's been a full process. I mean, I'll be honest, it kind of dwindled away and then came back again. But when it came back again recently, it's like, oh, that's what was coming up last year. And I didn't recognize it was coming back up again. So I think this first occurred when I started doing the trauma work. And I realized, shit, I'm so good at this trauma work, and I just absolutely adored it. Like, it lights my heart up. And if you notice, last year I became a self-love trauma coach. So I still had the title self-love, but come into being a trauma coach, and that felt really nice for the evolution at the time. But the fear of just being known as a self-love coach, I guess me not even realizing it was like an unconscious thing. I went back to just being a self-love coach. Like, I didn't listen to what I felt pulled towards, and I ended up progressing back to being a self-love coach, and that's fine. Recently I've had a lot of conversations with my friends, funnily enough, the beginning of the year, and then when I stepped into the freedom experience, the same thing kept coming up. I was just like, I don't feel like a self-love coach encapsulates everything I am about. I just don't feel like you fully understand the power of my work. And also, there's a lot of self-love coaches. And I think for me, there was a little bit of resistance to it. There was resistance to stepping away from it, and there was resistance to keeping it also. And I didn't understand why. So, you know, this process has been like a lot of journaling, a lot of feeling into what is it that I'm about? What is this new level of expansion that I'm stepping into as a coach? And how can I embody all of that? And then the other day I was driving and I just got this like real pull to pull over and change my Instagram bio. And when I done that, the title came to me the night before in bed, and it was just like reclaim and embodiment coach. And I was like, yeah, I love that. I love it. So the next day I was really called to pull over and change my bio. And then I was just like, oh my God, I just love this so much. So the reason why I wanted to do a podcast episode around this is because when we're doing a lot of growth and, when we're in a space of expansion, we have a lot that changes in our internal world. And often what can happen is our external situations may play out the same until we decide to step up and change them. But I think also one of the big things that we fail to appreciate is when we make a step up and when we expand or we're growing, we're in a period of really, really radical growth. Who we are changes and our behaviours change. How we identify with ourselves begins to change. Even how you would begin to describe yourself as a person will change, which then in turn will have a ripple effect, because it's like your friends will no longer align with you. Even your partner may not align with you anymore. Your job, your goals, your dreams. So all of these things begin to subtly change. And I think what can happen is we can be in a big period of uncertainty, where we know something's not quite right, but we can't put our finger on what it is. And I think that's the space I found myself in. Like for a good few weeks now, there was just something missing and I could not figure out what it was. Obviously, there was little subtle indications, because every time I was going into coaching calls in the Freedom Experience or when I was going to my journal, I was continuously journaling and talking about this title of a self-love coach. But it never clicked, it never landed. And for so long, I felt like something was missing and I was like, I don't know what that is. And I think what's really important is just that we listen to ourselves. Like, really getting that deep level of self-awareness is key. And when you can't quite figure something out, it's about thinking, are you making the space for what it is that you're calling in? So when I say that, what I mean is, are you internally, energetically making that space for the new energy to come in? Because it's all about ebb and flow energy, isn't it? And I think, when we're in this period of growth, energetically things are shifting. They shift internally and externally. But what we also have to remember is, are we making space for that new shift, for the new energy that the shift is bringing? Are we making space for the growth? Because are we allowing certain things to ruminate and land and trickle in? And often we do all of this work, but then there's no time for the listening, the observation. And I think we get so caught up in the doing, that actually it's really important to just sit and allow the things that you're stepping into, and the reality is that of what it is that you're becoming and the person you're becoming. It's really, 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 really important to make the environment for the downloads to occur. And listening to yourself, tuning in a lot. And we can do all of the journaling and we can do all of the things that we need to on our journeys, but actually, are you just sitting and allowing? Because the new title that I've got came to me when I was in bed, and then me pulling over came to me when I was driving with no music on or no podcast. And I think sometimes we get very caught up in the doing of the self-development and the self-love. It's that actually sometimes we need to create that spaciousness for the expansion to just trickle in and land. And then you're like, whoa, that's when you have the downloads. Because the self-awareness is key, isn't it, really? If you're going through shifts and you're in a space of growing, well, you've got to be aware. You have to be self-aware to notice what it is that's shifting. And it's then you have the choice of A, do you really, really want to embody that and step into it? Because that's where the level of uncomfortability comes. Or B, do you want to do all the growth work on the surface, but actually is anything shifting deep down inside of you? Like, is anything starting to radically change? And are you beginning to fully step into everything that it is, all of the work that you're doing and all of these realizations that you're having about yourself? So that self-awareness is key. And I think understanding that in moments where it feels a little bit disjointed, that's the time to amplify that level of self-awareness and really, really spend that time intentionally creating space. You know, intentionally creating that spaciousness is very, very important. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's overlooked, like intentionally just sitting and being, not doing, just being and tuning in and getting a level of self-awareness. And I just feel like Lydia 2.0 is fully here. Like I've just ditched the comfort blanket of self-love coach, and I am now fully embodying my title as a reclaiming embodiment coach, and it feels fucking epic. Like I've just been reborn into this new coach, and I'm like, I love it. And obviously the undercurrent of everything I still do is around self-love, but I really feel like it's natural for us to grow. It's so natural for us to grow and expand. And I think when you disrupt things and you disrupt your environment and you disrupt your comfort, your safety zone, is actually really when the magic occurs. So don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. And I know I say this all the time, but I think this is really important in terms of how the things we use to, how we view ourselves is how it feels relevant. So don't be afraid to step outside of that and see yourself in a different way, because the perspective will shift and then things will begin to energetically shift. I hope this is making sense what I'm saying. Like, for me, it makes perfect sense because I don't know. So, but that's just the key. Make space. And don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to step into the level up. Stop waiting for that level up and that growth and that expansion to come to you. Like, step the fuck up into it, and don't be afraid to do that. So even if you've got a business and you've just been feeling a little bit stuck with business, shake it up, like disrupt your environment, like try something new. Or if you are on a self-love journey and you've been doing the same things constantly, shake it up and make space, and schedule time in your life to just be with yourself when you feel like you're in a rapid period of growth, or you feel like you're doing a lot of self-development work and you're trying to unravel or understand certain beliefs that keep playing out, or certain cycles, or even if you just can't quite pinpoint, like, what is that story that, I talk about the story all the time that plays out, and you're just like, what is that story that keeps playing out? Like, I don't know mine. Create the fucking spaciousness to allow for that awareness to occur, because if you don't do that, it's very, very difficult. So yeah, that was today's little short sexy episode, and I hope you took little nuggets of wisdom away from that. And if you do feel called to do the deep work, if you want to reclaim parts of yourself that you feel have been lost through trauma or, really difficult experiences, and you're just like, I want to fucking feel empowered and I just really want to work with Lydia, like now feels good to be able to do that, then hit me up on Instagram, selflove.lydia, or you can email me at hello@lydiamccartney.com, and we can just connect and see what the possibilities are for you. So, my loves, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did enjoy, maybe leave me a little review if you feel called to. Tag me on Instagram, let me know how you found it, and just share it with anybody who may need this episode. So I am sending you so much love. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast episode. Speak soon.